right, Algebra 1, Lesson 110. This one is on several things. Vertical shifts, horizontal shifts, reflection about the x-axis, and then combinations of shifts and reflections. Okay, so stay with me for just a minute. If you can look at your book, this is probably going to be a lesson you want to look at your book quite a bit at. So this is page 462. All right, so I want to talk about something first, okay? There are something known as parent functions, okay, which kind of set the standard, kind of like your parents, okay? They set the standard, okay? So f of x, I always like to think of that as y equals whatever this is, okay? G of x is a y, okay, that's just how I like to think about it because that's actually where you're going to place it on the y or the x-axis, okay? So g of x is going to be on the y-axis, h of x, y-axis, p of x. So all of these of x's are always going to be like your y, okay? Now, I want to explain something to you. The x squared will always look like this when you graph it. So something squared, so this would be like, for example, let's do xy chart for just a minute, just on this one, just so you'll see what I'm talking about. Let's say I chose a 1 for x. So x is 1, then what is y? Y equals, if x is 1, then what is y? Well, 1 squared is 1. Okay, so y equals 1. All right, let's try a different one. If x is 2, then y is 2 times 2, which is 4. All right, let's do a negative number. Let's actually even do 0. If x is 0, then 0 times 0, which is the answer for y, is 0. And then let's do a negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 would give me a positive 1. And then negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 would give me a positive 4. Okay, so what does that look like graphed? All right? Here we go. 1, 1. Now I'm just going to pretend like those are there, okay? 2, 4. Okay? 0, 0. Negative 1, 1, and then negative 1, 2, positive 4. So as you can see, they're exactly the same, okay? And that's to show you what this function does. So all that was to show you that this is what shape it makes when it's an x squared, okay? That's what I was trying to show you, and I used this method to figure it out, okay? Now, when it's x cubed, it's going to look like this, okay? And I would draw this on your paper, okay? If it's x squared, it's going to look like this. If it's x cubed, it's going to look like this. If it's square root of x, it's going to start here and go like that. And then if it's absolute value x, it's going to look like a V, okay? Just so you know. All right, those are the parent, kind of like the standards, okay? This is what x squared ones look like. This is x cubed. This is square root x, and this is absolute value x. All right, but let's say the next one we're going to draw is f of x equals x squared, and then they're going to put a plus 1. Now, I want you to watch what happens. We're actually just going to go up 1. You see how this is on the 0? It's going to go up 1, and then it's going to look the exact same. So you're just going up plus 1. All right, let's look at this one, okay? This next one we're going to graph is g of x. And I want you to notice the parent functions are all lowercase, and these functions, I want to show this very well, are actually going to be capital. So the new ones are going to be capital. All right? And then let's see, it's going to be x cubed plus 1. So each time we're adding the plus 1. So, as you can see, this crossed at the 0. Now it's going to cross at the 1. See that? All right, let's try this one. This one is h of x equals square root of x plus 1. Again, This is what it looks like, but now that we've got the plus 1, here's the 1, and it's going to start there and go over like that. Okay, so it's just moving up 1 every time. And then lastly, this would be p of x equals square root of, absolute value of x plus 1. And then that was going to go up 1, and then that is that. Okay, so that's what's happening each time. But what if it was minus 1, and minus 1, and minus 1, and minus 1? What happens? What do you think will happen? Hopefully, let me go on everybody's these and I'll tell you what happens. Okay, so hopefully you guessed that when it's like this, we're going to go down 1. So instead of being in the center 0, we're going to go down 1, negative 1. And it's going to do that. This one's going to go down 1 right there. This one's going to go down 1 and start here. And then this one's going to go down 1 and do like that. Okay? So that's what's happening every single time. Isn't that cool? Now, let's actually graph one. Okay? I'm going to let you look at these for just a minute. And they're wanting me to graph this. Okay? I'm going to put it down at the bottom. F of x, which we know it's the new, it's not the parent, it's a new one, equals, and then they've got square root of x plus 3. Well, now I could do an x, y chart, or an x, and then this would be f of x chart, which is still the y, and figure out x, and figure out y, and figure out x, and figure out what y is, and figure out what x is, and keep going on like this. But it's actually easier just to go, okay, I know that it's an absolute value, so it's going to look like this, okay? And when it was minus 1, it went down 1. So if it was plus 3, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to draw it right here. Okay? I know it's going to look like this, but instead of going right here down 1, it's actually going to go up 3. So 1, 2, 3. We'll put a dot, and then I'm just going to draw lines. Okay, now it kind of runs into that, but hopefully you can see that that's the shape it makes, and it just went up 3. Alright? So, as you can see, these are all vertical shifts. It either goes down 1 or up 1, or down 3 or up 3, etc., following the patterns that the parents set up. Okay? Now, let's look at horizontal shifts. Now, I'm going to just erase this one. This time we're going to learn about horizontal shifts, because that was vertical shifts. Okay? Now, let's look at this together. Alright, I'm going to put here, let's do this first one. This one says f of x, now remember this one's capital, that means it's new. And it says, I want you to see what's happening, x minus 1 square root. Alright, now, as you can see, it has the square and the square, it has the x and it has the x, and it also has the minus 1, just like the other ones did earlier. But it's within this inclusion, this parentheses. And when they are within, you might want to write this down, when they are within parentheses, it's going to move left and right, horizontally. It's going to have a horizontal shift. Okay? So, instead of it moving up and down vertically, it's not going to go down 1 or up 1. It's going to go left or right. Okay? Now, do you see this right here? That's the one we're working with. Okay? But when it's kind of confusing because it says minus. So you would think you would go to the left, which is a negative 1. But you actually do the opposite. So that can kind of get confusing. But the way I try to remember is what's going to give me a 0 answer? Well, 1 minus 1 equals 0. So then my x would be a 1. Therefore, I know that I'm going to move 1, not negative 1, I'm going to move 1 to the right because it's a positive. So that's kind of how I think. If you just want to think opposite of negative 1, it's going to be positive 1. So we're going to look at this, and since it's in this inclusion, we're going to go over 1, and then you're going to do your norm. Okay, so it still looks exactly the same, it just has moved over 1. Alright, let's do a few more just to make sure you're getting it, okay? This next one is g of x equals x minus 1 cubed. Okay, again, it's got my cubed, it's got my x, and then it's got minus 1. Alright, so when it's inside that inclusion, okay, when it's in that inclusion, okay, then that means it's going to go left or right, and it's the opposite when it's horizontal. So instead of it being a -1, it's actually going to be a +1. But you can ask yourself, what's going to give me a 0 answer? And a +1 here, -1 is going to give me a 0. So a +1 is what we're going to move it. So we're going to move over +1 right here, and so then it's just going to go here like that. Okay, same move. Let's do this one. H of x equals, and this one is square root of x minus 1. Alright, again, this minus 1 is inside of this square root, so it's going to be a horizontal shift. So here we go. And again, you would think, since this is -1, it would be to the left negative, but it's actually opposite, so we're going to the right. And so we're going to start there and go like that. Alright, and then lastly, this one, which is p of x equals, and this one is x minus 1, and it's all included in the absolute value. Again, we know it's going to have this shape. It's got -1, but it's inside the inclusion, so it's going to be left or right, and it's the opposite of -1, which is going to be a positive. So we're going to go over 1, and we're going to start there and go boom, boom. Okay? So that's how you would know how to draw those, just because you knew the parent ones. Okay? Now, this time, all I'm going to do is go plus, 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 and plus. And what's that going to do? Well, you're actually going to go -1 instead of positive. Remember, you're doing opposite. So since this is +1, you're actually going to do -1 or -1. So we're going to go over here, put our dot, and it's going to go up. Okay? This one, it's +1, which is opposite of +1 is -1. So we're going to put our dot here, and it's going to go like that. Got it? Hopefully this is making sense. Next one, this is +1. And again, you would think it would be, that means I need to go to the right, +1, but I'm actually doing the opposite, which is -1. So -1 is right here. So it's going to go like that. And lastly, x plus 1. We're actually going to go to the left again, -1. And so it would be this. Okay? So that's how we would do those. Alright? So hopefully you realize that when they are within the parentheses or within the square root or absolute value, you're going to go left or right, and it's the opposite that you would think it is. Okay? So that's what I would put star and put when they're within the parentheses. You're going to do a horizontal shift, and it's the opposite. I would definitely show that. Opposite than what you think. Alright? Now, let's do a little bit more. Let's actually do one of the problems that they're going to give us. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to put it down here. So the problem that they give me is this. F of x equals square root of x minus 3. Okay, let's look at this. This is the square root one, so it's going to look like this. One of these. And it's -3 or -3. But remember, when it's within this inclusion, when it's within this, then it's going to be a horizontal, and that means it's going to be horizontal, it's going to be opposite. So instead of going -3, okay, I'm going to draw it right here, instead of going -3, it's actually going to be +3. And that's where we're going to start. And they go like this, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay? And that is exactly what you would draw. Okay, you see how I did that? Okay, now, last thing last portion of this teaching. I hope, I think. Actually, we got one more small tad bit. Okay, now, we're going to learn about something just a tad bit different. Same thing, these are the parents still, okay? But this time, watch what happens. My new one is going to be a negative. The x is the negative part, not the number, -1, +3, -3, whatever. It's a negative x. And I want you to see what happens when we get a negative x. What's going to happen is, you're still going to have this kind of look, but guess what it's going to do? It's going to go down. See how that did? Okay? This one, g of x equals -x². And what is it going to do? You see how this one goes like that? This one's going to go like that. So it's basically a reflection. Put a mirror, you put a mirror, that's exactly what it's going to look like. Okay, so you're basically doing mirror versions when you have negative. So that's good. It's good to know your parent and what they look like, because then you know what to do with all your other ones. Okay, let's do this one. H of x equals, and they put the negative, let me make sure I wrote this right, yeah. Negative square root of x, like that. Alright, and see how this is going like that, this one is going to go like that. Okay? And lastly, p of x equals, and then they put negative x like that. And what's that one going to do? Hopefully you realize by now, it's going to go down like this. Okay? So everything is just a reflection across the y-axis. Okay? Across, or I'm sorry, the x-axis, across. So when you see this, if it says reflection about the x-axis, about always means across when you're doing these kind of problems, because we're going across the x-axis, okay, each time. Alright? It's just flipping and looking, it's mirror. Okay? Alright, let me see if that's all I needed to show. So, okay, let's do this one then. So, let's graph. Let me see if I can get one up here. Hopefully you can see. F of x equals -x². Okay? F of x, and then they're wanting us to do this one. Okay? So all we're going to do is basically draw what we already did. We've already done it. Okay? But that was their problem that they gave us on here, which we've already done. So there you go. We did it. Yay! We've already done it. So what we normally do is look at the parent and know that we're doing a reflection. So, alright. Now, let's do, I'm trying to decide if I should erase all of these. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to erase the parents. I hope that's a good choice. Okay, so if I erase the parents' ones, then what is this? F of x equals negative, and now I've got x. And now remember this, plus 3. Now it's not within the inclusion, so then we're actually going to move up or down, okay? So these are vertical shifts because it's not within the inclusion, okay? So this is plus 3. So this negative x, here it is right here, negative x, but then we've got this plus 3. So what's going to happen, let me make sure we're doing this right, yeah. We're going to go up 1, 2, 3. And this, that we know is a negative x, is just going to go plus 3. So we're going to go up 3. And that's what it's going to look like on the new one. Okay? It's kind of how that would work. Alright, so it's good to have all your parents written out and even all your negatives written out so that you kind of know and you kind of need to get used to how this works. Okay? So, that is lesson 110.